Since Bitcoin has been created, anyone who has had a bit of ambition and a great idea has been able to venture into Web3. Until now. A new New Jersey law unanimously passed legislation that could affect every NFT creator. Today, we're going to discuss what was proposed and how this will affect the crypto industry on a whole. Hello, I'm Taj, digitally known as Tropic Vibes, the host of Nifty Business, where we highlight NFTs and explore Web 3.0 as we move from pure speculation to creating real-world value. So I first heard about this being proposed via a Twitter space, and of course I had to take it with a grain of salt, but I spent much of today researching it and looking for various publications, and much to my surprise, it really is flying under the radar. However, I was able to find some great articles on why.org, which is a publication in conjunction with NPR and BBC. In case you're wondering, I will leave a link to the direct article in the show notes, and even the law that was proposed earlier than this one, and I'll give the direct link to that so you can actually check it out. It's very short, but it is noted that this sort of thing is coming down the pipelines and regulation is definitely on the way. Of course, after we saw what happened with FTX and all those centralized exchanges which have done just crazy things throughout the year, and the bankruptcies, of course, with Luna, Terra, and so forth, we knew that this was coming. Of course, ironically, FTX was a poster child of how to do the things the right way because they were working with legislators. And of course, that is all up for debate as to if that was an inside job or what have you. But all I'm saying is definitely now regulation is on the way and laws are being passed. So this bill in question, which came up earlier this week, is actually different than an earlier legislation, which was called the Digital Assets and Blockchain Regulation Act. And of course, this also was in New Jersey, and this was proposed by a Senator Robert Singer. And that law was supposed to be a little bit more industry friendly, as it is dubbed, and it really paved the way for a lot of things to happen, including making provisions for DAOs and how New Jersey law would actually govern that, allowing those organizations to be established within the state and having protection of the law and so forth. So that was sort of interesting. That was sort of something that was much more accepted and excited about. However, it also flew under the radar. I guess unless you were living in New Jersey, maybe you're following this stuff really closely, but of course I am not. I'm from New York, I live in Jamaica, and I did not really realize that this law was actually passed in New Jersey until I was researching this recent one. Now, what makes this one different is it's actually more for the consumer than the industry as a whole. So this is not the quote-unquote industry-friendly legislation. This is more of a consumer protection regulation. And it would require people to produce a license to engage in digital assets business activities, such as selling NFTs, getting a new cryptocurrency on board, or anything of that nature. So what this is supposed to do is protect New Jersey residents. Now, this is, of course, if you're trying to transact with a New Jersey resident or you are a New Jersey resident looking to go into the business. So that is what they're trying to do. Reason being that they're stating is they want to protect their citizens from all the shenanigans that has been happening throughout the year. Now, this will also bar people from being able to participate in this if someone has ever been convicted of fraud, embezzlement, forgery, major theft within the last 5 years. You would not be able to get a license. Some people might be saying, well, that's very good anyways. Those people should not be in there. However, it's just a stark contrast from what we were seeing before, where it was buyer beware and everyone knowing that you're coming into this whole Web3 ecosystem is that do your own research. Well, this law is trying to be a consumer protection measure that would prohibit the amount of people that can actually come into the industry. Now, this might be a good thing on some regards. However, I think it is opening a Pandora's box. And it further complicates things because how exactly are you going to regulate this? Because let's just say someone is producing this NFT in Malaysia or some far off country or wherever it is, and they're not necessarily even aware of New Jersey laws or what's going on in the United States. However, as someone who is transacting and doing business with a New Jersey resident, technically speaking, this law should prohibit you from doing that. But of course, we know with the blockchain, it is open, it is decentralized, and so forth. How exactly would that be regulated? How exactly would that even protect the consumer? And of course, if someone violates that, how would they be tracked down? I could understand if this is a New Jersey resident or even a U.S. citizen, but what if this is someone that is completely in a different country, completely unaware of U.S. laws and what have you? Well, who does that burden fall on? Well, earlier in the year, we saw that the U.S. government agencies were saying that they have the full jurisdiction of the Ethereum blockchain and what have you. However, again, that is up for debate, and that's mainly because a lot of the nodes that are processing these transactions are located in the U.S. However, this is a global network, so no country really has a monopoly as to say the blockchain or Web3 or cryptocurrencies on a whole fall under their jurisdiction. Now, this is most evident with Bitcoin because, of course, Bitcoin is the most decentralized, the most scattered, the most trusted, tried and true cryptocurrency of them all. And of course, that would be a complete nightmare trying to legislate that. But we'll see how all this falls, especially when we're speaking about NFTs on a more centralized chain. It could be very interesting. So, for example, the Binance Smart Chain, which we know has a central organization. Of course, Binance is running that. And some other ones might be a little bit less decentralized and maybe be impacted by these legislations. So it'd be very interesting to see. But what's even more interesting is this was a unanimous passing, right? Both Democrats and Republicans, which in case you're not familiar with it, those are the two major political parties in the United States. They both agreed on this and got this through. No one dissented or went against this. Now, what was even more interesting with this was there was a present lobbyist from Dapper Labs and SoRare. And if you're not familiar with those are very active NFT producers with sports. So Dapper Labs, of course, has the Top Shots and, of course, the NFL All Days, and SoRare has the soccer or football NFTs, and they were there. They're highly influential, and those companies, of course, have huge stakes within this. Now, how will they be navigated through all of these laws and what have you? Because at the end of the day, they are just like sports cards. So they're trying to get an exemption as to say, well, we aren't like those risky assets with people that are just speculating. This is no different than a Topps card or any of those old school cards, Upper Deck and Flair and so forth from yesteryear, which is just the digital version of that. So this should not be considered a digital asset or an investment or any of kind of that risky stuff that we're trying to regulate against. And of course, the legislators, the politicians, I guess you would say, listened to their concerns. However, it still was a unanimous decision that said, no, this is what we're going to do. So how is this going to work going forward? I don't know, but there's big money at stake. So these definitely are being lobbied. Politicians are going back and forth, and we know how that goes. But right now, it really seems like they're unanimous in passing these laws, which will protect the consumer and make things very difficult for people that are producing. Now, what usually happens in these cases is it paves the way for big companies to have the upper hand. So the average person cannot have those lobbyists that are at these meetings trying to sway politicians to make exemptions and so forth. So a little artist that has a collection that is, I don't know, let's just say street art between New York City and New Jersey, Jersey City, and is just really putting this stuff out there and is just an independent person, has a very small budget, maybe only makes $10,000 a year in NFTs, who knows, but is not even doing this full time, but is very passionate about the art that they're doing. Well, this is going to greatly affect them because now they don't have that same power, that same might, that same voice at the table, and they might be locked out of business altogether. Whereas, let's say they were a New Jersey Devils fan or something of that nature, and they're doing fan art or anything of that, New Jersey sports, of course, even the football teams, the Giants and the Jets actually play in New Jersey, but let's just say this is someone who is just doing some fan art. Well, this is going to be very interesting because it's paving the way for Dapper Labs and those big companies to have the upper hand. But hey, I would love to know what your thoughts are on all of this. Do you think this is just a scare? Do you think this is just a start? And do you think other states and countries and governments are going to follow suit? Love to hear your thoughts. Please feel free to reach out to me at Tropic Vibes on Twitter. But as usual, I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this as we're learning and building Web3 together. So until next time, later. The Nifty Business Show is not investment advice. It provides insights and information within the space. As with anything, please do your own research before making a decision whether you're making an investment or a purchase.